Good evening, friends. I'll be talking roughly about 45 minutes dedicated on this subject. So let's begin with what does the Quad do? You must be aware of this. This is just repetition. It's a group of 4 countries: United States, Australia, India, and Japan. Maritime cooperation among them began after the Indian Ocean tsunami of 2004. But today, all countries, all democratic countries and vibrant economies, they are working on a far broader agenda which includes tackling security, economic, and health issues. Two specific points I would like to speak about right in the beginning. Economic issues are extremely important today. Good old days have gone. There was a time when bravery played an important role in any war. Today is the situation that you don't require a person to conclude the war. And tomorrow, probably with the introduction of Industry 4.0, robots will help you do all this. At the end of the day, to run anything, you require economic support. An economy is something which will give you a long-term life. That was up to 2019. In 2020, we came out with another problem, health-related issues, and one pandemic called COVID-19, which has changed the way we think, we live, which has changed the economy to a great extent. Your hospitality industry, your aviation industry, everything is subjected to problems today. And even vaccination is a much bigger issue. We are not sure of how Olympics are going to go through. Japan has seen problems in that. If one single person gets infected with COVID, that creates a serious impact on all the players who are participating in these games. So economy and trade, because ultimately trade is also a very serious part of economy. And it's very interesting to see that if you study the world trade statistics, only 3 countries account for 30% of the world trade: China, USA, and Germany. USA today is subjected to wildfires in California. China having floods, yesterday's news. Same is the story with Germany. It was unthinkable that 153 people died and almost 1300 people are missing. All these 3 economies, which are very important economies for the world. And then we talk about ourselves, a country which has huge consumption, but primarily an inward-looking country. If you look at our contribution to world trade, it is hardly 1.7%. Not only it is 1.7%, it is stagnant for last 10 years. Due to COVID impact, our exports reduced by almost $23 billion. So these 4 nations matter to a great extent in different ways. We are going to look at them. As of 2021, leaders in all 4 countries have become more aligned in their shared concerns about China's increasingly assertive behavior and are more willing to define a constructive agenda of cooperation. Again, there are political responses. Trump administration came to an end. Joe Biden has taken over. Republican to Democrats. Again, the way of thinking is little different. But again, every single country has its own national agenda. And every single country has a desire to play an important role in international trade. So there are certain issues which are combined issues. There are certain issues which are exclusively national issues. And again, there are issues like whether you are dependent on the world, are they dependent on you, in which areas you are self-sufficient, on which areas you are not self-sufficient. For example, India, in terms of oil, which is one of the major reasons for all transportation, we are importing more than $100 billion a year. Definite expenditure in foreign exchange. And 82% of our oil requirement is imported. We produce only 18% to 19% in India. Then impact of carbon footprint. Suddenly the climate change has become very serious issue. And it's going to impact. EU is coming out with a new program on climate change, and which will probably accelerate the process. And then they are saying that we would like to reduce this by 2030, which will have a severe blow for Indian automobile industry, because petrol, diesel, these are two critical elements for all our transportations today. And we would like to shift towards solar energy. Probably thermal plants will have to be closed down, if not because of the national reasons, because of the international compliances. A lot of discussion is going to take place, and probably the targets which were set for 2050 would be pulled inside, and then we'll have more different targets. Maybe 2050, what we wanted to achieve will be 2040. What we wanted to achieve in 2040 will be 2030. And the latest report on climate change says that, okay, these next 3 years would be of critical importance for all countries of the world. So scenario changes pretty quickly. In 2020, we are subjected to pandemic. In 2021, we are seriously subjected to floods, environmental disasters that are taking place. There was a report I was reading which said that in Arabian Sea also there is a possibility of additional 150% more storms coming into. They might be devastating storms. We see this happening, we can't stop it. There is one thing about nature that you really can't do much about it. You have to listen. There is no option. So the agenda of cooperation needs to be redefined again and again, depending on the requirement of that particular period. And then there is something very interesting. Working closely with these countries is natural for the United States. Direct reason is this: Australia and Japan are US treaty allies, and India is an important strategic partner. So the base would remain strong for the Quad. And it's very interesting statistics. This year, 42% of world's exports and 38% of global imports are expected to pass through, according to a UN report. This extract is taken from a research report and very latest, May 27, 2021. If in Quad region, we are talking of 42% of world exports and 38% of global imports passing through this, you can automatically understand its importance for the transport sector, for the logistical movements, supply chain resilience, number of things. This cannot be forgotten. The geopolitical importance of this region cannot be forgotten from an international trade perspective. Then there is another very interesting article. This is from a senior bureaucrat in Ministry of Commerce, very recently published. And it talks of something very interesting. So I thought it has a lot of correlation for this. And it's very interesting to see what are the new measurements of strategic autonomy of a country. This article says the strength in 4 product groups: semiconductors, large capacity batteries, critical minerals, and medicines. And why this becomes very important? Because while the US, Taiwan, Korea, and China are the key players in semiconductors, China has an overriding lead in the remaining three product groups. So all the four important trade aspects, somehow you cannot nullify the impact of China. That has to be understood. I did visit China during my research project on labor laws. And one interesting thing I found out, when China started with the policy of special economic zones, pretty early compared to India, we started about 96. They started in 1980s. And Chinese premier at that time said that you must be a global manufacturing hub. And China should produce 150% of its requirement. So every company, serious company, has to export. There is no other option. Because whatever you are going to produce, 100% production cannot be sold in your own country. 50% production has to be sold outside. That is how you become a manufacturing leader and a major player in international trade. Then they created mega facilities. If I talk you in terms of figures, one single special economic zone in China, Shenzhen, exports roughly 200 billion plus exports. And China has such 6 special economic zones. So they captured the market. If you look at other countries in Quad region, Australia is small. Japan has always been export oriented. US plays important role in terms of investment. And India has a large consumer base. As a net result, we are inward looking people. All our projections are primarily based on local market. And it's very interesting, barring few companies like Bajaj Auto, if you ask somebody, what is the percentage of production that you export? Very rarely you will find a company which is exporting more than 25% of its production. So external sector is not something very key for us. That can be seen in our figures also. We need to develop this sector. We need to grow in this particular sector. That is the need of the hour. You can't help it. And there are specific reasons for this. The communication speed in 21st century is tremendous. The development of technology is also tremendous. And the trade itself has taken a speed. Therefore, unless until you are updated, unless until you are seriously trying to enter into a market, that's not going to happen. On the other hand, sheer size of our population attracts every single country towards India. I was addressing a delegation from Ireland on behalf of Federation of Indian Export Organization. And I asked them this question, that 70% of this delegation is visiting India for the first time. And you are such a small country. Why are you looking towards India? You already have a European market. So they said, no, India cannot be forgotten, because where else do we have this kind of a consumer base? Are we going to continue as a consumer base? Yes. Are we users of semiconductors, large capacity batteries? Bound to be. No options. And therefore, this plays an important role how we are going to look at the trade in future. So in response, to reclaim the leadership in critical product, these 4 products, US has prepared an action plan for gaining strength in these 4 product groups. The White House report titled Building Resilient Supply Chains revitalizing American manufacturing, and fostering broad-based growth. It has all these details. It was released in the first week of June, so very recent. And it may be a very valuable reference for India because the report includes a detailed reference to India's PLI scheme, Production Link Incentive Scheme. Production Link Incentive Scheme primarily says that we will produce goods in India, but we would like to integrate in global supply chains. And we would like to have investments from abroad. And there are two countries we are definitely looking forward to, rather three countries. We are looking forward to USA, we are looking forward to European Union, particularly Germany, Netherlands, France. We are also looking towards Japan, and we are also looking towards Korea. And when Japan made an announcement that we would like to withdraw from China, we thought a lot of Japanese companies will walk into India, but unfortunately that hasn't happened. Most of the companies went to Vietnam and Thailand, things like that. That is another issue that needs to be considered. And please understand one thing very carefully. The proof cannot be denied, facts cannot be denied. Our thinking may be other way around. That's a completely different story. So when we understand the facts and when we analyze the facts, there is something else that comes up. I would like to give you just one example. Pharmaceuticals and active pharma ingredients. Now understand this. US is a big user of generic drugs. They account for 90% of all prescription medications filled in the US, but only 20% of prescription drugs pending. And then comes the very important statistics. As usual, China is the dominant supplier of generic APIs. Europe imports 90% of its requirement from China, while India imports 70% from China. The US imports 40% of drugs from India, which are mostly made from APIs imported from China. So directly and indirectly, whether it is in terms of procurement of ingredients or procurement of generic medicines, China accounts to be a large supplier. And therefore, we have created bulk drug parks as a new concept where government will support, give some incentives. But at the end of the day, this industrial activity has to take place in India. We'll have to create with, and we cannot stop importing all these things in one single day. Because any activity, if you want to start on the large scale, requires preparation. This article is written by Ajay Srivastav. He is a senior bureaucrat in Ministry of Commerce. Also a graduate from International School of Business, Hyderabad. Person who has deeply studied this subject. And this is something one has to understand, that these four critical areas, minerals, semiconductors, large batteries, and pharmaceuticals ingredients, particularly in post-COVID-19 period, are going to play a dominant role. Because you have started work from home, robotics is going to come in, computers are going to be used more and more. As a result of this, you are going to require all these items. And therefore, creating a base not only for what we consume in India, but also what we can export plays an important role. Having said this, let us look at our global engagement with Quad countries. And I'll give you statistics so that you have a very clear idea. This statistics is spread over 3 years, 18, 19, 19, 20 and 2021. All figures are obtained from DGCIS, the official source of Ministry of Commerce for Statistics. USA, our export to USA was 52.41 billion. In 1920, it has increased to 53.9 billion, 0.09 billion. And in 2020-21, it is again reduced to 51.62 billion. Australia, again our exports have decreased and then increased from 3.52 to 4.04 billion. Japan, from 4.86 in 1819 to 4.52 in 1920 and 4.43 in 2021. So if you look at the exports to these three countries, and if you take the latest figures of 2021, our total exports for the year was 291 billion. 20.64% is towards Quad. Again, Japan and Australia, small numbers. US is a big number. Now let us look at what we import. Then you will find our import from USA is 28.88 billion. Australia, 8.25 billion. Japan, 10.92 billion. So as far as USA is concerned, our import is less. As far as Australia and Japan is concerned, our import is bigger compared to what we export to them. So as far as USA is concerned, we are a trade surplus. As far as Australia and Japan is concerned, we are trade deficit. In our total imports, the percentage is almost same for all 3 years. 11.95, that is 12, then 12.22 and 12.21. So we can say these three countries, as far as their exports to our country is concerned, account for 12% of our total imports. Now, if I want to study this carefully, one simple thing we would like to understand, and we will derive, that USA would be more interested in exporting their goods to us. They would also like to cover their deficit. Australia and Japan both are already exporting goods to India. They would like to increase their market share. You cannot deny that every single country looks to increase its market share. And therefore, we also need to understand how are they going to look at this? What are their ways and means of penetrating into India? What are our ways and means of penetrating into those countries? But then considering that US's total import is almost $2,400 billion, our percentage is not very large. Again, the exports have taken place because of a scheme called GSP. India was a beneficiary of GSP. So Indian origin goods when exported to US importer will get concessions in payment of duty. And it was unilateral arrangement. It was not reciprocal. So we are not supposed to give duty concession on US goods, whereas US is prepared to give duty concessions on Indian origin goods. These are all issues, complex issues. And this has paved way for what we call a tool of cooperation in 21st century, commonly known as free trade agreement, where we do trade with each other on preferential terms. And in light of that, we also need to understand what kind of preferential arrangements we have, because that will decide how we would like to go ahead with the whole subject. Before that, we also need to understand which are the top 10 commodities. The commodities that are import universally are classified under 97 chapters. Each chapter has its own specificity, and products are covered under a chapter. So if you take plastics, all plastic products are covered under chapter 39, that is the code for plastics. All rubber products are covered under chapter 40, that is the code for rubber. All mechanical engineering goods are covered under chapter 84, electrical goods are covered under chapter 85, and so on. So there are 97 chapters. And if you look at the total world trade, it is close to $18,000 billion in terms of exports. Again, then further bifurcation that can take place is which are the top 10 commodities we export. Because the possibility of gaining market access is always with reference to these commodities where our quality, our deliveries have already been acceptable to rest of the world. And these 10 commodities differ from country to country. So when we analyze this, let's first understand which are the commodities. India's exports to US, Chapter 71. This is primarily precious metals, gold, silver, jewelry, etc. Chapter 30, pharmaceutical products. Chapter 84, machinery, mechanical appliances, nuclear reactors, boilers, etc. Chapter 85, electrical machinery and equipment. Please again remember, we are major suppliers of components, may not be of the finished machinery. Chapter 63, made up articles of textiles, including technical textiles like filter cloth, etc. Then chapter 87, vehicles, auto. Chapter 29, organic chemicals. And then chapter 3, fish. Chapter 62 and 61, ready-made garments. These are top 10 commodities we export to USA. Now let us examine out of this what is very critical for them. Gold, silver, jewelry, limited access. Because what we export, what we import is a big issue when it comes to gold jewelry or products like gold, silver, platinum, etc. Circular trading also takes place. Chapter 30 is serious issue because we are a big supplier of generic drugs. And we are also big supplier of 62 and 61 ready-made garments. But unfortunately, there are equal size competitors. Some of them are from backward countries like Ethiopia. Our big competitor in US market is Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Vietnam. So are they really dependent on supplies from India? Only in few sectors. Otherwise, it depends on your quality, it depends on your competitiveness. It also depends on your currency. Appreciation and depreciation of currency plays an important role, whether your product remains competitive. Duty charge on your products is another important thing. When the GSP benefit is withdrawn for Indian origin goods by Mr. Trump, you can see the impact our exports have declined. Again, after changing, they have started increasing. So this is a fluid picture. We'll have to see, keep on seeing this again and again, revisiting which products we can add, which products we'll have more demand for. Because that is one area where we are going to look into very seriously. There is another very critical reason for USA that most of our service people are employed by USA, particularly in the IT sector. They grant H-1B visas, and that's a definite earning source for Indian engineers in IT sector. And that is also a great source for getting foreign exchange from those countries. And you will not believe India is the top earner of foreign exchange, which is calculated under RBI balance sheet known as net private transfers. This net private transfer is the money which is remitted by non-resident Indians working abroad. And this contribution from all over the world, money coming into India from non-resident Indians is close to $70 billion. That helps us to maintain our foreign exchange reserves to a great extent. So this is something we need to understand as far as US is concerned. As far as Australia is concerned, our exports 27 petroleum products, 30 pharmaceutical products, 71, 84, 85 common, which is for US, same is for Australia. Chapter 73 is different, articles of iron and steel. 63 is common, 87 is common, 62 is common, 38 is a different chapter again, miscellaneous chemical products. Again, our footprint is limited to few chapters. As I said, the exports are only $4 billion, nothing great. Again, Australia is a small country, cannot really consume large amount of goods. But by and large, if you find, most of the chapters remain common. Then we go to Japan. Chapter 29, organic chemicals. Fish. Japan is a big country consuming fish. So chapter 3. 27, mineral fuels. 71, same, gold, silver, jewelry. 84, common. 87, common. 38, common. 62, common. 26, ores. And 72, iron and steel are different items. Again, if you look at the report from JSW and Tata Steel, they have been largest suppliers to China, and they have exported huge amount of goods to China. Again, based on, because we have the resources for those particular product, iron ore, etc. But again, these countries also in terms of thinking are different. If you export iron ore to Japan and import stainless steel from Japan, you spend a lot of foreign exchange and you are providing employment in that particular country. So our focus has to shift from the raw material component stage to finished product stage. For that, our manufacturing activity has to grow. We should be part of global value chains. And we cannot totally say that I will not import anything. If we keep on sending this message continuously, that I would not like to import, I am not interested in importing, other countries will not cooperate with you the way they are expected to cooperate. Because then you become sort of a protectionist economy. On one hand, you are saying, I would like to invite money, investment into India. Simultaneously, I am saying I will increase my tariff on imported goods. I will create a policy which will not help increase, which will not help having two-way communication. It will be one way. I would like to export everything that I manufacture, but I am not keen on importing anything from you. Then the negotiations become completely different. So in the 21st century, can you be just you? Answer is no. You have to depend on countries. And in order to increase exports, you have to permit imports coming into the country. And you have to bargain and see how your integration into global value chain results into higher value for your products, simultaneously providing employment. One good example to state, in 60s, Vietnam export was 15% of India's exports. In 2021, Vietnam's export is 85% of India's exports. What is the size of Vietnam? And Vietnam is prepared to enter into a free trade agreement with Europe, and it allows 90% items duties to be eliminated. In India, we always look for more protectionism, and our local industry says, stop the competition coming from abroad. As a net result of this, product may not be qualitative because we are not really facing the challenges the way other countries face. So there is a change that is essentially required. And let us hope that this production link incentive scheme will bring about that kind of a change, that will produce goods in India which are capable of being exported. Then we need to understand the technical regulations and quality standards. And we'll have to look into this. That is another issue that we have to think about when we think of exporting goods to other countries. Your products have to be competitive. Your products have to be qualitative. You must be a part of global value chain. These three critical elements today. And then after sales service, other areas, complementary areas that come into picture. Only if all this is complied with, you have a good chance of penetrating markets, not otherwise. Because it's not a compulsive product. I will have to buy oil from Saudi Arabia. I will have to buy oil from other Middle Eastern countries, including, if permitted, from Iran as well. Reason is very simple. My economy is dependent on that oil. And number of things likewise has to be seen and looked into. What is my spending on what commodities I spend? What is my earning on what commodities I earn? And what is the future of these commodities over a period of time? Again, due to two critical aspects, COVID-19 and climate change. Our policies have to be redrafted to a great extent based on these two elements. In immediate future, maybe in another 2 years' time. So that would be one very critical impact on the trade. Another very important aspect in increasing trade is called free trade agreements. Let's understand what are the agreements with these countries. So we have agreement with Japan, Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, which came into existence on 29/7/2011. So it's almost 10 years now. India, Australia, we launched negotiations for Comprehensive Economic Cooperation Agreement. The difference between economic partnership and economic cooperation is investment. With Japan, we are looking forward for investment also. With Australia, we are saying economic cooperation. That means we'll talk about goods, we'll talk about services. We may not necessarily talk about investments. What happened in this agreement? There were 9 rounds of negotiations. The last round was in 2015. Now there is a news. We are likely to resume talks for Comprehensive Economic Cooperation Agreement soon. Let's hope that starts. We'll establish the relationship because that will increase our footprint. Our exports to Australia is only $4 billion. We need to do something about it. India, USA, agreement on free trade and investment is under negotiation, likely to be concluded before December 2021. Hopefully, with all the 4 countries, we will have some FTA in place before December 2021. With Japan, we already have. With USA, we are planning. With Australia, we have to look into and then see how best we can do in this particular area. What about our relationship with these countries? India-US relationship, very critical for India. Why? India expects more cooperation and investment from USA. Not only monetarily, militarily also, particularly in the Quad region. So we would like to have good ties with them. USA is providing H-1B visas. This was a big issue with Mr. Trump. He said, I will not increase H-1B visas and why America should be for Americans only. So for a particular year, there were disturbances in this. He did this for every single aspect, not only with India, with other countries also. He did not sign any FTA between transatlantic USA and Europe. He also refused to sign the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which included countries like Canada, Vietnam, etc. And during Obama time, it was all negotiated, but it was not signed. And then he said, for my tenure, I'm not going to sign. So everything got delayed by 4 years. So H-1B visas is a major thing. Minimum earning of an engineer in USA, IT engineer, is $5,000. Indians are genetically programmed for saving. So some amount of money they send back to India. If they are North Indian, maybe sending 15%. If they are South Indian, maybe sending 30%. If they are Maharashtrians, they have double views. But everybody definitely sends some amount of money. As a net result of this money is coming, continuously coming. So we are worried about whenever somebody says that, look, limit H-1B visas, reduce H-1B visas, or I will not permit. This relationship plays an important role for us. We should have good relationships so that our more and more people can get employment. USA and India both value each other's contribution as a democracy. And India would continue to be important supplier of generic medicines. That cannot be avoided, more so post COVID-19. So that's another issue that has to be looked into. Then comes India-Japan relationship. When we talk of India-Japan, investment is a very critical issue. We have good cultural ties with Japan. The kind of agreement we have entered into, you will not believe because people don't read in details. It offers work visas for yoga teachers, music teachers, healthcare workers, nurses, etc. and pay good amount of money. Only one question additionally, you should have adequate qualification in this, plus you must know how to speak Japanese. It plays an important role. Another area which is open for negotiation or it can be used for creating much better ties is Buddhism, which can be a heart language between India and Japan. And we are natural trade partners. We'll continue to be natural trade partners because of our cultural ties, very strong cultural ties. So this is one that we need to look at. When it comes to Australia, there is one negative aspect. We have opted out of RCEP. RCEP was an agreement between 16 countries, 10 countries of ASEAN, Japan, South Korea, Australia, New Zealand, China, and India. We thought this agreement may be misused by Chinese, relabeling, utilizing another countries. They will send their goods to India, and therefore November 2019, we said we are not going to sign this agreement. But it has been a setback for Korea. It has been a setback for Japan. Little setback because they already have an agreement with us. But Australia did not have any agreement. So what they could have earned out of this agreement, or they could have paved way for exporting their goods to India, was not looked into. And so far, we are now looking at we need to engage more effectively. We need to negotiate the FTA. We need to offer some market access to them, and in return they will give market access to us. As a net result, our exports will increase, hopefully. But on political side, whether it is Japan, USA or Australia, our relationship is good. So in conclusion, we need to understand few things about this. When we can increase our trade significantly with all the three countries, there is good scope. Of course, you cannot be absolutely protective saying that I will not allow your goods to come into my country or I'll generally increase the duties on the products. You have to take a soft stand. Concluding negotiations of FTAs with USA and Australia are extremely important aspects. Quad cooperation is important due to geographical location and presence of China in the region. Export, however, must be our national priority. And we have set a target of $1 trillion exports by 2025. So in 5 years, we would like to increase our exports from 291 billion to 400 billion. For this particular year, 21-22, we expect goods and services put together to touch $1 trillion, and out of which merchandise goods should be at least $600 billion, which is a Herculean task considering today's scenario. But on the silver lining, yes, there is a capability. The capability will become reality if export really becomes our national priority. If we are passionate about that subject, we really create ease of doing business. We reduce the bureaucratic problems and we respect the exporters. If that happens, yes, this would be possible. And then we can play a much bigger and dominant role in this particular area. Our presence will not be just geographical presence. Our presence will also be important for them as economic presence, as global supply chain participant. And that will pave a good way for us. So as a region, it offers opportunities. We need to understand them. We need to work on them. We need to see how best we can do. It's my habit to give a thought at the end of any workshop, any webinar. And all my thoughts are based on Buddhism. The reason is very simple. Buddha is one person in the world who always said you are responsible. No God will come to rescue you. You are responsible. Even his definitions of nirvana are very good. He says it is like finishing all your sorrow. Don't ask me what will you get. There is no moksha, there is no swarga, nothing of this sort. Your pains will end. That is more important. Then I studied this subject independently. I studied Zen philosophy. And Zen is one very simple way of looking at it. See things as they are. See things in reality. So, thoughts come from Buddhism. And it comes primarily because Buddha says you are responsible. Don't hold anybody else responsible for what you do. Your karmas will pay, good or bad, and you will carry that with you. So the thought that I have decided for today is a very interesting thought. And that thought is, there isn't enough darkness in all the world to snuff out the light of one little candle. Individually also, if you are passionate about this subject and we think we can do something better, there is a good scope for increase. I am personally passionate about increasing India's exports. I do contribute to the extent possible, even in creating policies through export promotion councils. But at the end of the day, this plays an important role. What is burning inside my heart? What light I am carrying? If I can reach that light to anybody else, and this statement is absolutely true, even if you say that this darkness is 1,000 years old, reply Buddha will give is only very simple, that lit one candle, the darkness will disappear. Let's hope the darkness disappears. We emerge as a strong country. We increase our global footprint. I must thank you for giving me this opportunity. And I hope this presentation will help you in some way understanding this subject. To whatever little capacity I could explain, I have tried to do that. Thank you very much.